I could probably go on for another 15 minutes about how great I think Sam Rockwell is, but I think I covered it.
Hi, welcome back to another episode of Video Connection. I'm Dan, this is Aaron, and today we're talking about See How They Run. It is directed by Tom George and stars Sam Rockwell, Saoirse Ronan, and Adrien Brody. It's rated PG-13 and is currently streaming on HBO Max.
In the West End of 1950s London, plans for a movie version of a smash hit play come to an abrupt halt after a pivotal member of the crew is murdered.
So, Aaron, what did you think of See How They Run?
You know, I thought it was a breath of fresh air. I thought it was just a fun little bite-sized movie that was full of all kinds of different fun artistic choices and enjoyable retro period piece with some interesting meta-narrative choices, and it was just a lot of fun to watch. So I'll turn around and say, Dan, what was your gut reaction to See How They Run?
My gut reaction is that I enjoyed it. I feel like it wasn't a home run for me. Not that it needs to be. You know, it was a lot of fun, like you said. There was a lot to like about it. It has a good cast. It has good acting. Has some fun, snappy dialogue. I really enjoyed the use of color in it. I feel like it came up a little short for me as a whodunit. There have been a few others in recent memory. Off the top of my head, I am thinking of Knives Out and Death on the Nile, both of which I thought were pretty excellent in that regard. And compared to those, this one doesn't quite measure up, but I don't think that should, decrease anyone's enjoyment of this one. I think it's still fun and, worth a watch.
And that's an interesting point you raised there, because if I'm not mistaken, Death on the Nile's an Agatha Christie story, which
I believe so.
We'll talk about a little bit, because that figures pretty heavily into this movie. And I'm almost a little embarrassed that within this movie there's a play called The Mousetrap that's based on Agatha Christie's story, but I don't know if it's really based on an Agatha Christie story or if they made that up for their narrative. And I probably should have checked.
Right.
Alas. But I can agree with your assessment that the whodunit part of it wasn't necessarily the strongest part. That's sort of a big deal, because that's the crux of the plot.
One of the things that I think is sort of vital in a whodunit is that when you get to the inevitable reveal, the viewer should feel like, oh, if I had just been paying a little bit closer attention, I could have figured that out before the reveal happened. And this is one, it's not spoilers, I'm not giving anything away here. I don't think the clues were necessarily laid out in such a way that a viewer could come around to the right conclusion and feel like they had accomplished, the work of the detective, like you would like to do in a whodunit.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, this definitely felt a shade closer to Clue, the board game, in terms of, how complex the mystery was. But yeah, that's fair. If I had to pick a way to describe this movie, I think it's almost kind of Wes Anderson light. There was a lot of, retro character. It's set, I think it's supposed to be in the very early 50s. It just had a lot of fun charm and class in that regard. Like you said, great use of color, great costumes. The sets are awesome. The cast is great. The cast is pretty much perfect.
Yeah.
The thing that was interesting to me is I'm one of those people that likes Wes Anderson, but sometimes he's too much for me. And I enjoyed very much that this was kind of like a toned down approach to how he might have done it. And then there was also some Guy Ritchie flavor in there as well. I was seeing kind of a restrained Guy Ritchie making a whodunit set in an older time period where he didn't want to get too hip hop because that wouldn't be appropriate for 1950 London. And for all that, I say to the director, applause, because that was cool. I liked it.
One filmmaking aspect that didn't necessarily click for me was the heavy use of split screen. Sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 3 or more split screen. I like it from an artistic standpoint. It looks interesting, but I also feel that in every shot there's probably something I should be looking at. If you're showing me 2 views, my assumption is one of these is more important than the other, and I don't know which one to look at if there's more than one on the screen. And I say that as someone who, when I play video games, for example, I like to explore every single path before just plowing along with the main storyline. And as that type of person, this movie was a little bit stressful for me in that regard, because I felt like I was seeing multiple corridors down which I could travel and not being sure which path to take, and there's no way to go back and replay it, so to speak.
Right.
So it was just a little bit unnerving for me every time they went to split screen, not knowing exactly, am I missing an important detail if I'm looking at this side of the screen as opposed to this side?
It's interesting to think about because there were some times it would definitely work better than others, where sometimes it might be, you know, you had a split screen and you see the character here, then you see them 10 seconds later and you see them split switches and you see them 10 seconds later, and that's just kind of a fun, you know, snap, 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 this is where they're going. Or one moment in particular I can think of that I think even went to a quad split screen where we were looking at all these different characters moving through the same building, and that was just sort of the fun of, who's going to cross paths? But then there were plenty of other times, much like you're saying, where you're like, well, you kind of were just showing me two angles when I could have seen one and got the same information, but now I'm a little divided on where my attention should go, and then maybe I'm losing track instead of realizing where I should focus.
Yeah, sometimes it's fun, and then sometimes you feel like you're seeing this character talking and this character reacting, and I don't know if I'm watching this guy talk, am I missing something important in this person's reaction that might be a clue? It's hard to say.
Yeah. So I had mentioned that there was some meta stuff going on. You know, this is a movie that has a play that's based on a book that they want to make a movie of, and that's all contained within the movie, and there are definitely fourth wall breaking moments where they're pretty much admitting to you that you're watching a movie right now. And then within the context of those layers, that fourth wall breaking happens. And, you know, there are things that are brought up in the context of the people trying to make a film that later actually happen in the movie, and so on and so forth. And I thought they had a lot of fun with that. And I don't, that it never felt too heavy handed. So every time it just felt like a cute little wink. It's odd. It's not even framed storytelling. It's literally just like a story about a story that's going to be based on a story that was based on a story, which is a very unusual thing to make. So I think they did a good job with that.
Yeah, I enjoyed that aspect of it as well. One thing I would say that I would not call a criticism, just something I observed, is that this is a movie in which Sam Rockwell did not dance.
Wow.
I wasn't anticipating it in the moment. There weren't really any points where I thought, oh, this is where it's going to happen. It was after the fact, looking back, I thought, oh, we didn't get a Sam Rockwell foot shuffle dance in this one. But that's all right. There's always next time.
The movie is plenty silly enough. It could have happened.
Or maybe it happened in one of those split screens and I didn't see it because I was looking at something else.
So you bring up Sam Rockwell. I don't know that I've ever seen him in a movie and been disappointed that he was there. He's one of those guys where it's like he just raises the quality by being present.
So what did he do that made you suspicious? It wasn't so much what he did, it was more the way he did it. How'd he do it? Sort of suspiciously. Right.
I'll go ahead and get the criticism out of the way. He's not that great at doing a British accent. He's not Brad Pitt bad, so I'll give him... I struggle to say the word passable, but if I can describe it properly, sometimes there are things that you observe as wrong, and you accept them, and you move forward. That is how this one felt, where it was like, it's okay.
I think it was to his benefit that he didn't try to overdo it.
Yes.
He was not doing Oscar Isaac in Moon Knight.
And I was trying not to say that just for Oscar Isaac's benefit, but I was thinking it the entire time.
I'm sorry, sir.
No, exactly, because we love Oscar Isaac. It was very cartoony, what he did. What Sam Rockwell did was a very restrained approach, and I think that helped a lot.
Yeah, if you're not going to be able to nail it perfectly, at least keep it subtle enough that people can sort of overlook it.
And it totally helped that he's playing a character who's so understated and gentle. He doesn't go crazy. He doesn't scream. He's almost always doing the same energy level of delivery, so it worked really well. But seriously, Sam Rockwell's screen presence, his charisma is so strong that it just takes you right past it's okay. It's a extremely American guy pretending to be British because it's a movie. Fine. And in some funny way, I felt like Saoirse Ronan's legit strong accent next to his, it was this weird, pleasant balance of gentle, sort of fake British to like super strong, like she's legit, you know. I don't know why. It was just this sort of like nice contrast. Go figure. One tiny thing I wanted to say is that I've observed in movies that Sam Rockwell is exceptionally good at the pregnant pause when you give him the right moment, and they took advantage of that. There was one pretty much laugh out loud moment for me in this movie where he did that, and it was just like, nobody can say nothing the way that guy does.
Yep. It's a powerful tool in the right hands.
Staged, so to speak. Sorry.
I like that he was kind of playing against type, being this guy that has very little to no sense of humor, because usually he's the goofball, he's the wacky guy, and he was the restrained, subtle person who didn't laugh at any of the jokes, and that was cool. I could probably go on for another 15 minutes about how great I think Sam Rockwell is, but I think I covered it.
He does manage to be likable in basically everything I've ever seen him in.
Even when he's playing a character that does morally dubious things that you're meant to not like, you still end up, that rascal, you know.
Such as Mr. Right.
For example.
Or the lovable loser, as in Galaxy Quest. What a guy.
What a guy. He's great. Watch Seven Psychopaths. I just want to say it. Any chance I get, watch it. It's so good.
Even Iron Man 2, 3?
2.
One of those Iron Mans. He was good in one of those Iron Mans.
He was. And that movie was kind of a mess, but it was good to see him. A bit of sort of actor trivia. In this movie, in the play, the lead actor is Richard Attenborough, which is a real person who's a real actor, and you might know him as John Hammond from Jurassic Park. That was fun because most people, I think, who were born after 1960 know him because of that. So they don't think of him as this young man that's doing what he's doing in this movie. So there was, for me, recognizing that when they had the marquee up with his name, there was just this fun thing. Every time he spoke, I was just like, so that's what that guy was like when he was a kid. That's hilarious. Continuing with the actors, Saoirse Ronan was charming as crap. She was wonderful. I think she did such a great job. Very convincing as this character that's full of energy, super eager, very inexperienced.
Sometimes overeager.
Quite a bit.
As good as a confession.
Let's not jump to conclusions, Constable.
And the fact that there were moments where it went to an extreme, which, mind you, it was adorable, but there were points where it went to an extreme that was almost Looney Tunes ridiculous, and it was just so much fun.
It was me, Inspector.
I arrest you for the murder of Leo Cochrane.
No.
She was lovely.
An absolute delight.
100%. That term delight came to mind many times during this. I mean, we could talk about it forever. To be perfectly honest, I think there were many other people in the cast that were in the same vein where, you know, they might not have had as much screen time, but they had their moments, they had their lines, they had their looks, and just everyone looked like they were having fun. The most significant criticism that came to mind after I watched it was that Adrien Brody didn't get enough screen time. You know, he's playing this character that's kind of slimy, but it was just fun to watch. He's just a fun guy to watch. And much the same as everyone else I mentioned. You know, he was 100% there to do this job, and he was having fun doing it. It was so much fun having him there, be this extremely American slimeball, surrounded by all the culture of England and Ireland and all those places.
What do we have here? Working late, huh?
You know, having him feel like somebody who's just that little bit of a caveman, a little barbaric as we're viewed. It was very appropriate. I noticed that with all the outdoor stuff, the more I was watching it, the more I was getting that sense that this is shot in a studio lot. Not so much as to detract, but just there was this strong feeling of this is an old Hollywood studio and we milked it for every angle we could get for all these different storefronts, etc., etc. But I bring it up because I sort of saw it as a charming nudge to the audience. It didn't come across as a failing on their part. It came across as, we're embracing the old way of making movies, and, you know, we're working in these lots that have been used for decades. And it almost seemed like it was intentional. Like there was just a little bit of let's let a little too much light. Let's let everything be a little too even. Let's let it be a little too clean. And it came across very much as, yes, you're watching a movie about a movie. And I choose to see it as an intentional choice that I thought just continued the meta layers and continued the, sort of love letter to old filmmaking, which it did make me think of the movie Hail Caesar in some regards. Mm-hmm. It was a similar movie in terms of being set in the same time period and showing you the inside of the film industry. So it seemed appropriate. Part of the trick of filmmaking in those studio lots is, putting the amount of effort into the detail just for the shot to make sure that you get what you need. Mm-hmm. And this one, it's not that they didn't do that, because they did it. They had the signs that you needed that were period pieces, and there's the doorbell with the little names that looks, era appropriate and that sort of thing. But sometimes it almost is the cleanliness, I think, that there were times where it almost felt like the street was too clean. And
right.
That might have been the
Which kind of fits the style, though, also. Like, everything was just a little bit clean, a little bit colorful, a little bit stylized in a way that maybe wasn't even aiming at 100% realism.
Right. It's, it's like 10% illustrated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's that time where we talk about whether we recommend or don't recommend this movie. I have a feeling we're probably going to agree on this one, but I'll go ahead and let you say what you think.
I would recommend this movie. I think it's the kind of movie that I really like reviewing because I feel like not as many people are necessarily aware of it, but it was fun. It had a great energy. It had a great cast. And I think that most people who enjoy watching movies would enjoy watching this one.
Mm-hmm. And being PG-13 rather than R, I feel like it's open to a little bit wider audience than some of the things we've reviewed, so that is in its favor as well.
For sure.
So yeah, go see it. Or stay at home and see it, because it's streaming. Well, that's all the time we have for now. Thank you for watching. We do appreciate it. And as always, we hope you'll join us next time on another episode of Video Connection.
See ya!